kind of the most important thing of today, and kind of in terms of implications for the opening day roster, is Jarlin Garcia. Um, the kind of sense that I get when we were talking to Todd Tomzik, the Pirates director of sports medicine, he's yet to grip. For those of you who are unaware, as of what we've been told today, he's unable to currently grip a baseball, which not good. That being said, the initial testing on his shoulder and his elbow came back clean. And when we asked Tom, like, is that kind of uncommon? He said, like, yeah, it's pretty uncommon for these two to be fine, but you'd be unable to grip a baseball. And so in terms of what a definitive timeline might look like with Garcia, we don't have one. But we do know that this isn't going to be something that lasts a couple days, but we do know this is something that's going to be at least a couple weeks until he even entertains the idea of pitching. And just on a personal level, like trying to getting into the mind of Jarlin, like you feel for the guy. Like he was supposed to go pitch. Like he's supposed to be with Team Dominican Republic right now. Like he's supposed to put on for his nation on the world stage of baseball. Like, and now not only is he going to have to, miss out on that opportunity. I'm not sure if he's still going to travel with the team. That's something that I'm going to try to figure out tomorrow, because I know that Chavez Young leaves for the to play with the Great Britain tomorrow. But he's going to miss that, and he might miss opening day as well. So just on a personal level, you kind of feel for the guy. And then in terms of implications, this is a guy that was supposed to be on the opening day roster as well. When you kind of look to the left-handed options, it's a lot of guys with some intrigue, but trying to sort out what that might look like going forward. So that's pretty much the biggest newsy thing as we stand. I think you kind of jinxed it in a sense, saying that we didn't have much to talk about, because now we have this to talk about.
Yeah, I kind of want to go a little bit further into this. Just your thoughts, because it seems like just based off of the diagnosis, I would be shocked if he's available by opening day. I mean, if he's not going to be pitching for a while, he's not going to be pitching opening day. So are you thinking, are they going to go with one of these non-roster invitee lefties? Are they going to look to maybe acquire somebody? They did make an acquisition today, and we'll talk about that later. But just your vibes, are they going to basically just next man up, or are they going to go find somebody?
I think it really depends on the severity of the injury. And a lot of these questions can't really be answered until they have an idea of the severity of the injury. Because if this is something that causes him to miss, let's say, the first 2 weeks of the season, that's a 15-day IL stint, which means you can't, like, if you were to put him on the 60, for example, like that clears up a roster spot. If you put him on the 15, that doesn't clear up a roster spot. But if this is serious enough to warrant a trip to the 60-day IL, then that puts them in an easier position to want to add one of the non-roster invitees. So that's kind of where they stand right now, because if they would want to add one of those non-roster guys, but he's only on a 15-day stint, or, maybe he's, got a puncher's chance to kind of be there, then, it gets a little tricky, because we're talking about guys having to be taken off. And, today you kind of alluded to it. Max Kranick was put on the 60-day IL, which gave the Pirates the opportunity to add the outfielder from the Rangers. His name is escaping me off the top of his head, but it's kind of a wait and see in terms of how specifically they're going to approach it. It just really depends on the severity of his injury. But I will say, that competition among those left-handed guys, it just kind of, with this news, it got a lot more intensified, so to say.
Let's be honest, the rest of the left-handed options aren't that appealing. You're really hurting now. And I don't want to treat it like it's the end of the world here. It is, a decently good reliever. They should be able to survive it, but losing probably your top lefty, it's not good for this team at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the issue is if he were right-handed, I don't think this would be that big of a deal. But, I don't think you can go into opening day with the only lefty in your bullpen being a Rule 5 pick. I don't really think that's a good idea. So then, yeah, you're looking at, let me pull up the list here. Caleb Smith, Daniel Zamora, Rob Zastrizny, and Angel Perdomo are the non-Rossi invitees that are left-handed. So I guess Justice, if any of those had an upper hand on any of the other ones, who would that be? Are they all kind of even right now?
I feel like the one that might have the upper hand is Caleb Smith because he does have the major league experience. He transitioned into relieving like part or starting part time in 2021, and then transitioned essentially into full time relieving last year. And it's kind of, you look at the surface numbers. I want to say it's like a 4.11 ERA across 70 innings, and you see that and you're like, oh, that's not the worst thing in the world. And then you kind of see the underlying three true outcomes, and then I believe it's up to like a 5.79 FIP, and that's not all that savory. And then with Angel Perdomo, I don't know if you guys had the chance to see him when you were here in person. A very large human being. He's taller than O'Neal Cruz. He's 6'8", and they actually gave him the number 68, which that was not lost upon me. He's a very big arm, but it's not the biggest arm in the world. He's not like hitting high 90s consistently. He might, maybe touch 95, 96. He's kind of one of those guys where it's like he can rack up those strikeouts, but also there's the element of control that kind of comes into question. And so, yeah, it is more of a sticky situation opposed to just 2 weeks ago or just even last week in terms of how they want to approach this. One of the interesting things that Shelton had talked about, and this is something that Charrington had talked about as well, is they're not going to add lefties for the sake of adding lefties, because if you shift over to the right-handed side of things, like when I was making my opening day roster projection, like two of the guys that could, in my mind, that could have easily been on the opening day roster that I decided to omit, and they were really hard omissions, were Johan Ramirez and Colin Selby. Those are like two guys right there. Like, and again, like you do want to have lefties in your bullpen. You don't want to, head into battle without at least one. And I think a lot of teams would prefer to have two really competent guys. But I don't think they're going to treat it just as like, oh, we need to get a left-handed presence, so we're going to throw this guy in, even though we think this guy might be a little better. I think the word that Shelton used was it's still a meritocracy. And so if you get into a situation where none of those guys are really appealing, especially considering you might have to designate someone for assignment to get on the team, or you have someone that's already on the 40-man that's a righty, maybe they just go with the righty and kind of just figure out how to deal with things there. And I haven't looked at some of the splits with some of the right-handed guys. Maybe one or two of them might have reverse splits where they do well against lefties, but I wouldn't be shocked if that was a situation that we run into either, where maybe Jose Hernandez might be the only lefty that we have coming into the opening day roster. And then you kind of just figure out, how do you want to attack that to kind of make up for the absence of Jarlin Garcia.
Hey, you all, thank you for watching. I know we try to provide the most entertaining content that we can, and we'd love to spread it to as many people as possible. So I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but if you could take the 5 seconds to like this video and subscribe to the page, it helps out so much more than you know. Thank you, and let's go Bucks.